half an hour, and IoT is, as you know now, an incredibly broad topic. Now, I'm going to focus it on sort of what we call enterprise Internet of Things, but that's still an incredibly broad topic and requires me to know pretty much everything about everything. So I have way too many slides for the half-hour slot, but we'll do what we can. All right, so I'm sure you've seen about 1 million different numbers thrown at you over the last couple of days, and you're going to see a lot more. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, proclaiming how big the IoT is going to be. I'm sure you already know that. But I am going to talk about what's the impact on business and what kinds of tools and techniques then do enterprises need to be able to deal with and anticipate the transformation that the Internet of Things is going to bring. So first and foremost, why IoT? What good does it do in enterprise at the end of the day? And really it's about being able to learn more about how that enterprise operates, how the environment within which its processes operate, so that it can optimize, so it can run better, and so that they can sort of anticipate how to create new values with all that information they're getting about how things work. So that's really fundamentally what it's about, is being able to learn about the information that you're getting about the enterprise and how it operates, including all the assets that make up the enterprise and the environment that the enterprise processes run in. So, of course, we're going to see IoT consumer devices, wearables, appliances, and stuff like that, and we know that's sort of the common perception of the Internet of Things, but there's really much deeper things at work with the Internet of Things in enterprise. You can think about the impact on manufacturing as we equip all the manufacturing facilities with sensors and get much more real-time information about our manufacturing processes and be able to anticipate things, reduce costs, figure out new ways to do things better, and so on. So it's really going to help businesses better understand and manage those incredibly complex systems, and even then go beyond that. So it's already having an impact. I'm sure if you're here, you know this. Something like 60% of organizations are now actively pursuing, and I have to tell you that number has changed a lot just within the last 12 months and is changing rapidly still. So it is really starting to take hold. As Carl mentioned, IBM launched the Smarter Planet initiative in 2008, so we've been at this for a while. But I have to say, just within the last sort of 18 to 24 months, we've really seen it starting to take off. So what are the sort of transformations that we expect, right? There's different categories of impacts that the Internet of Things are going to have. Firstly, we can get new revenue. So we can figure out ways to use our existing products or existing assets or services to actually generate new revenue from. I'm sure we can all think of examples of that. We can think of new ways of working that are better, faster, more efficient. Looking at the data will tell us what we need to optimize and improve on. And even more importantly, we can start to think about ways to change business models. So the very fact that we've got these devices that are now connected all the time and sensor equipped really enables a lot of changing of business model. And I'm going to bring a couple of examples of this up, but that is something to keep in your back of your mind. Of course, we can optimize, we can improve efficiency, we can reduce cost, but we can also make some very significant shifts in the way that we do business. I'll try and get the clicker to cooperate. Get them on. There we go. So, really an interesting thing for me as a technologist about the Internet of Things is that it's not sort of one revolutionary new technology that's just come about in the last couple of years. And I was chatting with a colleague just before coming in, and we realized this has been sort of happening for 20-odd years. But it's really only recently that there's been this sort of convergence of things that have exploded and enabled this Internet of Things to sort of take hold and really start transforming our world. So the first is data. The sort of pure scale of data that we can get now. Sensors have become very cheap, very power efficient. That generates just a tremendous amount of data that we didn't have before or was expensive to get. Second is the cloud. Right now they've got this sort of ubiquitous compute power that we can harness anywhere or anytime. That really changes the game on what kinds of things we can do with that data. And then the third thing is engagement. So, through mobile devices and new sort of user experience, new ways of interacting with the user, we can start to engage users, customers, businesses, our own employees in whole new ways. And that's really one of the key things that we're going to explore a little bit more here is this concept of engagement. So, again, you've seen a lot of numbers, so I'm going to skip some of these numbers slides pretty quickly. A whole lot of devices are getting connected. That's the bottom line. That's a new source of data, and that becomes, interestingly, sort of the ultimate cloud application because, this isn't data coming from one place. It's coming from many places, billions, trillions of devices all over the planet. We need to be able to collect that in and operate on it. It's very hard to do that, in a distributed way. It can be done, but it's a lot easier if we can bring it in a place and harness a whole lot of horsepower to operate on it, make it accessible from anywhere to anyone, given the right security access rights and so on. But it really is the ultimate cloud application. We're certainly seeing that in the adoption of our cloud, just the volume of data, the things that we can do with that data, really driving customers to move to look at the cloud. So I talked earlier about engagements, and one of the things that we want to do with that data is, raw data is, nice to have, but really it's not that interesting in itself. And in fact, we have way too much. We're drowning in data, so we actually have to, use that compute horsepower in the cloud to generate insights automatically for us. We don't want to go crawling through that data. We want the machine to tell us what's interesting, what's new, what's broken, what's missing, etc. So those insights are really the reason that we want to use that data. And what those insights do are help us engage our audience. So whether that's a user, an employee inside the enterprise, a customer accessing the employee's services or products outside the enterprise, it doesn't matter. You can build whole new engagement models then with the insights from that data. And you can really be much more proactive, as an enterprise, instead of waiting for a customer to call and complain because their fridge is broken. You can see ahead of time now that refrigerator is, deteriorating performance-wise and is going to break soon. And you can proactively engage that customer to do something about that, give them a much richer experience, happier experience, and save some time and money for yourself as an enterprise as well. So that really gives us ways to use that data that we never had before, and it allows us to generate new sources of revenue. It could be from, for example, proactively selling that customer with a broken fridge, a service contract, or something just to, again, use the fact that you kept them happy and gave them a positive engagement to actually be an opportunity to drive new revenue and to expose them to new services or new things that they might want to buy, as opposed to when they're in an unhappy place. So let's look at that engagement a little bit deeper. Again, technology-wise, to me, one of the most fascinating things about IoT is this convergence. Right? It's not just the cloud. It's not just the devices with sensors on them. It's not just analytics. It's the whole intersection of technologies that really makes it a sort of powerful way to drive this sort of new engagement. And you have to be able to harness all those different technologies in an easy way in order to build that engagement and experience or to transform your business model. And that's hard, right? It's a very difficult thing to do. Takes a lot of talent. So what we want to see is people using that data that today goes unused. So something like 90% of the data that's captured actually never gets looked at. Secondly, a lot of that data is actually very sort of time sensitive, and it only has value within a certain time period of that data or that event occurring. And so if we can't act on it at that time, essentially, we've lost that window of opportunity to get value from that data. So I want to transition to a very practical example that I hope will sort of tie some of that together. Early on, we had a project with a company called SilverHook that builds power racing boats. This might seem like a odd kind of example. It's not really very enterprise, but it is actually very indicative of the kinds of things that you can use IoT for, use the power of the Internet of Things. So the base problem that they came to us with is that there's a lot going on in a boat. They can instrument that now and put sensors on the engine and different aspects of the boat performance. And you can get a lot of data about what's happening. You can get it in real time. The driver of the boat today is overwhelmed with data. They've got dozens of gauges around, and they should be focused on one thing, which is piloting the boat, for which they have to be looking out the windshield, not looking at a dozen gauges. But if they don't realize that one of those gauges is going funny on them, something very bad could happen, and it could disrupt their race or take them out of the race. So what we want to do is actually use that data and then gain insight from what's happening in the boat and expose that to the driver at sort of the critical moment and in a very easy to consume way, so that they're not distracted from what they have to do. They can consume that information immediately. So we used analytics looking at the data coming off the boat in real time to sort of figure out if there was something urgently wrong that was about to happen, a critical condition that the pilot had to pay attention to, and it would flash that on a head-up display for them. So that was interesting and required sort of deep analytics running in real time, so sort of 10, 20 millisecond level reaction time. Very cool technical challenge. But then they did something even deeper, I thought. So that's sort of an obvious thing to do with data and sensor-driven devices. The non-obvious thing is that they took that same data and used that to transform the engagement experience with the audience. So they drove that data out to iPad applications so that the user sitting in the stands could actually, not just watch the boats run around in a circle, but actually see much more interesting information about what's really going on, how complicated it is to pilot a boat, a much more engaging experience for the audience. They could also feed that data to the commentators or to the officials, again, to get more insight and more information about what's really happening. That's the far more interesting part, not that they were able to just do some analytics in real time. That's all good. We expect that. But they are actually changing their business model, adding new value to their customers by using that same data to give the customer a new experience. So I thought that was a very cool example and sort of completely relevant at an enterprise context. I could go on in interesting ways about the technology we used there, but I'll skip that for today. Some fancy animations. Get through those. Who did that to me? Okay, so here we have the results. So the results were that they could 40% faster get the information that they needed, developing an application and rolling those, things like the analytics and the iPad application out. So using our cloud tools, they were able to get 40% faster development time. They were able to improve the decision-making and safety of the driver in the boat, and then enhance the fan experience. So a little bit of actual business result there. I can't tell you in terms of revenue or cost saving or anything like that what they were able to achieve, but they were certainly very happy with that experience. So with that, I want to transition to talk a little bit about what the way that IBM sees the Internet of Things and what we're doing as a IoT platform level, and how we're bringing these different technologies into convergence so that you can actually take advantage of those same things and use data in the cloud and use analytics and so on. So we talk about it in 4 layers. The first layer is the devices and the networks. Again, fairly obvious. You have to start with the things and the way those things are connected. We're not really in the device space anymore, so it's not our game to build the devices themselves, but we certainly want to help customers who are building devices or operating networks or building connections through devices to networks. But the actual development of the solutions, the cloud-side applications and the interaction between the device and the cloud. That business we are in, so we very much want to focus on the platform. And we want to take that and add on top of that specific value. So it's one thing to have a great set of tools, but I don't know about you, when I walk into Home Depot and I see a shelf full of tools, that's just intimidating. I am not a handyman, so I don't know what to do with those tools. I have a particular problem I want to solve, and I just want to know which specific tools I need to buy to solve those problems. So what we do is take some of that rich tool set that we have, and we build on top of that industry-specific solutions for particular use cases and particular patterns in different industries. So, real-time geospatial piloting, for example, is one thing that we do for the connected car space. Used some of that again in the boat context I just showed. Or predictive maintenance, which takes information about the operation of a machine together with some understanding of that machine's componentry, a model of how that machine actually works and how normal operation looks in terms of the metrics and feedback on that, and what's abnormal. And we use that predictive maintenance algorithm to actually say, well, something is about to go wrong with the engine in the boat. You've got to take some action to make sure that doesn't go wrong. It could be maintain the boat, add oil, whatever. So that combination of the platform together with the sort of industry patterns, use cases, and specific assets like those predictive algorithms gives us a set of solutions for particular industries. And we can pull those together into applications tailor-made for a certain user, a certain role, certain industry situation. So we are well on the path to doing that. And what we ultimately want to get to is helping customers deliver those transformations that we talked about. The real goal is changing business models or engaging users in a whole new way. So we want to partner with our customers to deliver those industry transformations. That requires a lot more than just technology and tools. That requires expertise, learning from other customers. It requires secure operation of a cloud infrastructure, all kinds of things. So that's sort of the total end-to-end way that we are looking at the Internet of Things. And I want to touch a little bit more in the time I have left on a couple of those specific areas and how specifically that would help with enterprise IoT. So as Carl mentioned, right, this is not a new game for us. We've been doing Smarter Planet since 2008. Of course, the technology has evolved, and lots of players have jumped into the space and so on. But the premise behind Smarter Planet was exactly the same as what Internet of Things is about. The fact that we can use instrumentation in devices in the environment to get a lot of data. We get connected devices into the cloud, and we use that data then to drive something intelligent happening, getting insight from that data about the environment or about the operation of a process. So this is exactly Internet of Things. And the real ultimate potential is in that last thing, the intelligence. So, again, the data itself, interesting, but not valuable unless we can start automatically drawing insights from it to help our users and our employees and our customers. So it could be, what's happening, so consolidate that data and give me some sort of real-time guidance into what's going on right now. What might happen, so the data can also be used to predict something that soon will happen or could happen based on the information that you're getting. If something already happened, understanding why it happened so you can take some corrective action, also important. And then finally, most importantly, what do I do about that? So it's not enough just to present the data. We'd like to use the information that we have about the data and how the system, how the computer figured it out to actually give some insight about what you should do about that. So the predictive maintenance algorithms, for example, that I talked about, on top of having sort of models about how the device works, can also have information about what to do in case of symptom A, symptom B, symptom C. And we use that combination to then give the user real guidance on here's what's going on, here's what we see, looks like this machine is about to fail for reasons X, Y, Z, and here's what you need to do about it. So a lot more valuable than just raw data. And to sort of prove the point that, in fact, it takes a very rich toolkit to actually address all of the different industries and use cases out there. I don't expect you to read all the details here, but this is sort of a picture of all the different analytic and cognitive capabilities that we have in our cloud environment, and everything from sort of very hard real-time stuff that you need to do things like automated driving, where you expect that response to be pretty instantaneous, to things like, sort of big data analytics that doesn't have to be instantaneous, but is working off, terabyte volumes of data, to things like Watson, which is actually applying cognitive thinking and deep learning onto that data to automatically discover patterns and learn what's normal, what's not normal, and to correlate it with other concepts that it already knows about. So a whole rich set of tools for analytics to do the insight and learning that I talked about. That's really the core of what the value of IoT is to the enterprise ultimately. So to us, this is very important strategic direction. Analytics, not just, we have analytics, but in fact we have a rich breadth of analytics targeting all the sort of different needs. There is no one analytics technology that fits all the use cases in all the different industries. You need a whole portfolio of it, but you also need the guidance of what to use when, and sort of packages of things targeted for particular problems. So I'll skip over that. The sort of last thing that we have as part of our platform, which is a little bit unique, is the concept that the data is important, but the processes that you're using that data for are also important. And the relationship between the data and those processes is really important to have in your platform, because then you can help change those processes and optimize them much more readily. So, for example, if you're a manufacturer of things, automobile or whatever, you've got several different processes at work here. There's a design process, which could take years, very complicated, of course. There's a manufacturing process, how you build the thing. And then now there's an operations process. So no longer is it the case where that thing rolls off the assembly line and it's, bye-bye, customer, there you go. You actually have to now stay connected to that thing, get data about how it's operating, and use that data to actually help engage the customer again and make sure they're having a good experience. And furthermore, you use that data, back through the other life cycles to improve the product. Right? So now we no longer expect our cars to be exactly the same as when we bought them. We expect things like software updates to keep up with bugs or security issues and things like that. We expect our products to be much more dynamic based on the feedback of how those things operate in the real world. So that life cycle and that connection between the life cycles is actually really critical and is a key part of the Internet of Things. So we use that data to actually sort of integrate what used to be totally separate and disconnected processes. Okay, so it's our belief, based on those things I just explained to you, that we're one of the only providers of enterprise IoT. So there are lots of IoT providers, and we have great relationships and partnerships with many of them, but most of them aren't really addressing the sort of full needs of the enterprise. So we're very focused on that through things like analytics and through things like the intersection between data and the processes that data supports. And we're going to continue building out that platform and this sort of four-layer view. And we encourage you to come and see our booth in the demonstration area. We're also a key participant in a lot of standards. So I'm sure if you've spent any time investigating the Internet of Things, you've probably noticed a couple of things. It's still early days, and therefore a bit of Wild West in terms of the sort of standards. There are actually many standards, but there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of standards and interoperability and things like that. So very important to us, and we're a key participant in a lot of standards. One I wanted to sort of end on as a representation is the Industrial Internet Consortium. And I've been working with another company called National Instruments that builds a lot of the actual sensor equipment. They build data acquisition hardware and things that take data from the sensors on devices in energy grids and manufacturing plants and so on. And we've integrated that back to the IBM Internet of Things cloud and started building a predictive maintenance testbed so that we can show the interoperability and we could show the value of actually taking that data, feeding it up to the cloud, running analytics, and applying predictive models so that we can actually detect when these sort of sample or test devices are going out of whack and demonstrate the sort of need for maintenance or some kind of fix. We're also using that to start exploring security. Right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen many articles in the past few weeks about security in the Internet of Things, a major concern. And it's going to take a sort of concerted effort across multiple vendors in the industry in order to start making real progress on security in the Internet of Things. And that is fundamental to driving adoption. Right? If we as an industry don't get security right, we continue to find so many security flaws in our connected devices, our consumers, our employees, et cetera, are going to lose faith and lose trust in these technologies, and we're going to slide backwards. So we don't want to see that. We want to make sure that we are working in a consortium as part of a standards body trying to drive security and interoperability. So just a little example of that. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up and leave some time for Mike. So thank you very much. Again, I would like you to stop by our booth and see what we've got, and also make sure you explore online as well. And enjoy the conference.